Hi guys, I revealed some bugs during recording this part of the video, and there was something wrong with the dependencies in the Bower components folder. So that's the reason for I've reinstalled everything again from scratch, and also did the same thing for the part 5 in the tutorial over here in the client folder. So now when you kind of end up with the part 5 in this video series, that please take reference at this particular folder for part 5. It would be available in the GitHub repo in the link in the description below the video. So now let's actually start writing some code just in a minute. Well, but before that, I'd like to say that I've made a few changes to the code, just very tiny ones, but quite pretty important still. So the first thing is actually, well, let me open my text editor. So let's see. So the first thing is the index.html. The first thing, I've added the directive ng app, which is an AngularJS directive, in order to initialize the app, the entire application, Angular application like that. And this little part here replaces the placeholder that was filled with the list items. Yeah. So as far as we want to dynamically we want to update the part of the page dynamically, and this particular part with lists are about to be is actually the one to be updated dynamically. So that's the reason for actually adding there this ng view element. And the list okay, just let me close this. Okay, and the list yeah, this is list. Is it list? Yeah, list HTML. Okay, and the list is now has only the one single element, and this deserves a little bit of explanations, and let me just talk about this in a bit more details. Well, so the first thing we need, we actually do, is actually we use the ng-ini directive in this dynamic list HTML file here in order to initialize the getTasks function that we're supposed to write just in a moment. And the second thing, that as far as we would create the tasks object, that would be an array returned from the database after the response to get to retrieve the data is actually made. So the tasks object would contain the particular tasks that we are about to parse. Yeah, and here what we actually do, we use the ng repeat directive, which acts like for in or for each loop in different programming languages. So we define the entry variable here in the tasks.data. And why this .data is needed? That's because the object that is retrieved back from the database also involves some status number OK, like to 2000s, and many useful data, which is not really that useful actually for displaying the tasks. So we can't directly interact with the tasks object, but instead with the tasks.data, and that's quite important thing here. And finally we create our list group view and the list itself, and all of these classes are taken from the Bootstrap, which was installed, and it's located here in the Bower components. And the most intriguing thing is this one. So we use our entry variable in order to print each particular task we're getting from the tasks object, and this is actually what is known as the dynamical update of the web page. So that's how we actually do it with the help of the Angular framework. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Well, if it isn't, then please leave your questions in the commentaries below the video. And now we are actually going to start writing the code to make things work actually kind of properly. Okay, and the file we're supposed to start with is actually app.js, so let's go to this, and here we say variable app is equal angular.module, and we name this, give this module a name app, and that just was as it was initialized in index in the HTML tag on the top. So that's here we define this app module here, and also some dependencies. And if you don't really require any dependencies, you have to leave this, still you have to leave this empty square brackets, but we actually need one dependency, and this is called ng-root, like this. Okay, and now let's make app.config and function root provider. So this is needed in order to handle our roots. Root provider, and we say the root provider dot when, and here we basically define our very we define our very first like a kind of home directory here. So what happens when we are in the home directory? Well, in this case, what we need to do is actually to define the controller, which we are about to create just in a moment, and this would be called task controller, maybe tasks controller, just to be more exact. Okay, and the template URL, and the template URL is actually our lists.html, the file that would be dynamically changed. And please note that this list.html is the kind of Angular's view, dynamic Angular's view that was defined in the div where the placeholder for the list items was before in the previous part. So that's quite important thing to consider. Okay, and here we just say list.html. Okay, and well, we can also say that like otherwise. So if we're not actually in the root, then we want to say simply redirect to our root, like this. So this is pretty it for app.js. So well, I hope everything is clear, and now let's go to the TODO.js. So I save and close this file, and then I go to TODO.js, and the first thing to do is to actually import what we've done in the app.js. So we define another app variable, which is equal to angular.module, and here we use our app that we already created. Okay, and here we just say app controller, and now things are getting a bit more complicated, so please be kind of I don't know how to say this word in English, sorry guys. So be consistent, maybe, I don't know. So just take care about what is about to be done now. Okay, so we call this tasks controller, pay attention. Okay, tasks controller, and now we define a bunch of variables. So the first is the scope, and then goes HTTP. Well, what are these needed? The scope is needed in order to have the variable available in the kind of Angular view. So we would be using some variable in the HTML document in order to dynamically update it, and that's exactly what was just shown when we said like entry.task in the list.html. Well, maybe it wasn't called entry, well, but actually this is about the entry. So in order to be able using those variables in the static HTML files, we need to use this scope here. Okay, and then the HTTP, in order to make some HTTP requests, and then some locations here. Location. Okay, and then root params. And let's go actually to the new line. Okay, and here we want to have, well, basically, yeah, and just semicolon here. So also the function that takes the scope, the HTTP, the location, and the root params finally. Gotta be real precise here if the code is getting complicated actually. And now here in this function, what we need to do is actually, well, maybe just put it over, get in here, maybe like this, just better. And here we want to say just $scope dot get tasks, and here is the definition of our get tasks function that we were initializing in list.html. Was it in the list? Let me just briefly check this out. So list, yeah, and you need get tasks, yeah, in the here get tasks. So here is the initializations. Okay, so just quit from here. And so scope.getTasks is equal to function, and please note that I'm not using the arrow functions when working with Angular for just for some reason it doesn't really work like as expected, so that's the reason for using the normal function definitions. Well, a bit upset, but still it's quite important. Okay, and here we just want our http.get, so we're making now actually our get request. So in case that we're actually about to go to API /tasks, so that's exactly where our JSON, our RESTful JSON API is actually available. So in this case we say then, and here are two functions, the one is response and the another is the error handler callback. So we say function, well, that takes the response, and we just and here what we do here, we actually store, so we say the scope dot tasks, and here this is where we're actually storing our tasks variable. In order to, just let me show you, this is quite important thing. So here in lists we had entry in tasks. So in order to enable this tasks variable in the view object, what we need to do, we need to define this it somewhere, and it's actually defined in this todo.js file. So we say the scope.tasks is equal to response, yeah, so like this. And also what we need else to do here, we need to define another function, which is the error handler, with which takes the error, and we say just if error throw error, like this. And I save, and I just try to see if everything is okay. So semicolon over here apparently is needed. Okay, and I hold my breath and try to see if something at least works or not. Okay guys, and this is just brilliant. Now we've got our elements. So those are exactly the elements that we're supposed to have in our API, and if we're just about to see this in the row raw JSON mode. So we go to API tasks, and we have exactly this 3 here. And now just a little more example. Let me close this away and just save and close. Don't need this anymore. And I just run the Mongo client. Mongo. And I say use TODO-list, and now I want to add a new entry to our to-do list. I'm not using REST easy, just in order to save some time, so let's make it okay. Get the job done, and okay, say make a YouTube tutorial series like this. So now I've added just another 2 entries to our to-do list, and I exit from the Mongo client. I close this window and go to the to-do list app and press the update, and as you can see 2 more entries has been added here. Well guys, this was the most tricky part of the entire series, and I really spent hours in order to make it work, to debug things and so on. So well, this wasn't really kind of that easy, and from now on it would probably get a little bit easier. So in the further videos we're supposed to do just exactly the same that we have done already on the backend, on the server side. So we're supposed to delete the particular entry in the to-do list. We would also implement the add via the GUI somewhere over here. Well, maybe just make it okay. So actually this is a submit, so we would be typing something here and then press the submit, and this would add the particular entry to the database, and would show also in the list on this page. So this is the dynamic part. Okay, so this is what ngView is actually doing. Okay guys, hope this was interesting and clear. If something is not clear, then please leave the commentaries below the video, and basically until the next time, yeah, take care.